Hi, this is the lecture on drafting, revising, proofreading, and cutting the fat. So, up to this point, you've jotted down notes and written your thoughts in outline form. The outline is the skeleton of your project. Now you add the rest of its body and turn it into a living work of prose. So, writing the first draft. When the time comes for you to write a first draft, do not sit with fingers poised waiting for the perfect sentence to come to mind. At this stage, you simply need to put down the information and ideas you have gathered. You don't even have to use complete sentences. Later, you'll have time to expand and elaborate on these efforts when you go back to change and improve your work. Think of the first draft as the dress rehearsal that comes before the real performance. Don't feel like you have to begin with the introduction. It doesn't matter where you begin writing the paper. Your options include starting at the beginning, starting with another area with which you feel comfortable, working on individual paragraphs, starting with the area you have the most interest in. Where you start is up to you, but keep in mind that writing is more than just copying summarized and paraphrase notes in some logical order. Your writing has to have its own voice, which you can achieve by incorporating your own thoughts and ideas. These ideas can provide the direction for all the information on the note cards. The interpretation of the information will help the reader make sense of it all. Otherwise, your paper will end up being a jumble of miscellaneous ideas lumped together. So you have a three-part plan. As you get ready to start writing, think of the three parts of your paper in terms of this simple formula. Tell the reader what you are going to say it. Tell the reader what you said. You can also think of these steps in terms of the sections, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. In the introduction, you briefly introduce your topic, giving the reader a preview of what is to come. The body of the paper, the longest part by far, provides the facts, examples, and details that support the main idea expressed in the introduction. The conclusion summarizes and restates the main idea. The three parts of your paper should work together to make an effective whole. Strive for an attention-getting introduction, one that will arouse interest and encourage your reader to read on. In the body, make sure each point relates to the subject you are discussing. Do not stray into unrelated material or get caught up in trivial details that do not support your main idea. Your conclusion is your last chance to impress the reader. Try to make it as strong and as effective as you can. So, introduction. The introduction is a paragraph that captures the attention of your audience by telling an interesting incident, giving background information, or explaining your interest in the subject. Include your thesis sentence in the introduction of your composition. So here I'm going to give you some ideas for your introduction. Of course, my dog's going to go crazy because the doorbell rang. Hold on while I let her out. Sorry about that. Alright, ideas for your introduction. Begin with general lead-in statements to lead your reader up to the main point of the essay. Then gradually focus on the specific thesis statement and essay map. Make a striking or astonishing claim. Begin with an anecdote that will be finished in the conclusion. Give an interesting statistic or quotation. Ask a provocative question. Identify the main points you will cover. Also, again, that can be your essay map. I say the body. Draft the supporting paragraphs in your composition, making sure that each paragraph has its own topic sentence. The paragraphs should present your ideas in a logical order. The conclusion. The concluding paragraph of your composition should complete your composition and reinforce the main ideas stated in the thesis statement. A concluding paragraph often includes a clincher sentence that sticks in the mind of the audience. What I've told you is called the eureka sentence, right? Alright, so you want to watch out. Set a goal in each writing session Whether it's one paragraph or one page, having a goal will help you focus on that particular section. All right, getting organized. As the writer, you get to decide how you want to organize your paper. If you're not sure how to arrange your ideas, experiment by moving paragraphs around until an organizational pattern becomes clear. Different structures and different topics, so there's no right way to draft. The main types of organizational patterns include chronological, in which you arrange paragraphs according to how the event's ideas occur in time sequence. Emphasis, arrange paragraphs according to how the ideas are presented in order of importance. Least to most important, or most important to least. Compare and contrast, arrange paragraphs to show how two events, ideas are alike or different. Pros and cons, arrange paragraphs to show the pluses and minuses of something. Spatial, arrange paragraphs according to how the details occur with regard to location. Sorry, I should have scrolled that up. In regard to location, left to right, front to back, top to bottom. Cause and effect, arrange paragraphs according to how the events, ideas relate from effect to cause or cause to effect. As you work, frequently look back at what you have already written. Looking back helps you to pick up the thread of your discussions and helps you to reacquaint you with the thoughts you're about to pursue. Remember, in your assignment, we have said that you want to use the point example format. Now, that doesn't preclude you using one of these as an organizational tool, okay? You can combine them. All right, so you want to make your point. Audiences are persuaded by three factors: their perception of the author, the feelings about the message, their understanding of the argument's logic. So perception. The audience's perception of your powers of persuasion will be based on many things. For instance, poor grammar and spelling mistakes might convince readers that your ideas aren't worthy of their consideration. Feelings. Readers will often have an emotional response to your ideas. We sometimes imagine that we live in a world in which arguments are evaluated on the basis of the facts, but actually the facts themselves may be perceived differently by different audiences. As you write, consider where the audience is starting from emotionally, so you can gauge how they might respond to what you're saying. Understanding. Readers will also have an intellectual response to your ideas. Consider the logic of your argument and how that logic will appeal to your audience. What will your audience accept as reasonable evidence? So this is where your ethos, logos, and pathos comes in. Remember to maybe review that before you go to writing in the rhetorical sections lecture, okay, or in the PowerPoint. Okay, so here's some ideas for your conclusion. The ending of an argument is at least as important as any other part. You can engage the reader's attention and pursue an intelligent and convincing thesis, but this success is for nothing if the conclusion goes off the rails. Imagine a movie that draws you in at the first, thrills and fascinates you in the middle, but then ends in an entirely unconvincing way. Ask yourself the following questions to evaluate your conclusion. Does the closing add something new? An extension, an application, a recommendation, a connection, some new idea based on the introduction and body. Does the closing give the reader a sense of closure? Is it clear that you have finished and just didn't quit? I've seen that. People will write a great essay and they'll give me a 3-sentence conclusion. 3 sentences is not a paragraph and is not satisfactory. Have you avoided claims that are implausible or unwarranted? Make sure you do that. Don't give me some mumbo jumbo at the end, okay? Just don't. It ruins the whole essay. All right. Potential pitfalls. When you transfer your notes into your rough draft, be sure that there is a logical connection between your ideas. If you just cut and paste all your notes together, the result will be a paper that jumps from one idea to another without smooth transitions. Connective phrases can help bridge ideas together. Connective phrases include, for example, in contrast, on the other hand, in addition. Remember that I have put up a handout on transitions. You might want to take a look at that, all right? I've listed here some linking verbs for you. If you want to add ideas, you want to use these words. I'm not going to read all of that to you. You can pause this lecture and take a deeper look at all of those for yourself. If you want to take a picture of it with your phone so that you have it handy, you can do that too, okay? So some tips for effective drafting. Don't stop to make spelling and grammar corrections. Put question marks or notes in the margins if you are unsure of a spelling or if you think you see some other error. Try not to worry about the way you're using language, not at this point. Your main goal is to get your ideas on the page. You can make it sound better later when you revise. Remember that no one has to see the first draft but you. Leave wide margins and a space between each line so you can easily make changes later. Always keep your purpose and your audience in mind. Always, always, always. Use your own language. Don't try to be cute, but don't try to sound like a professor either. Write as yourself, a person who is telling something interesting to another person in as clear and uncomplicated a way as you can. At the same time, do remember this is an academic writing, not a narrative. Think of your reader. Remember that the reader is the person for whom you are writing in the first place. Okay, you want to watch out. Begin a new paragraph whenever you want to switch to a new idea, show a change of time or place, emphasize a point, or break up a large amount of text. You should never have a paragraph that is a page long. You need to find somewhere to break that paragraph apart. It is okay if you have more than 5 paragraphs. It is never okay to have a paragraph that is a page long, okay? I don't penalize you for having extra paragraphs. All right, now we're going to go on to revising. Fix the spacing because that's not what I meant to do. That undo button. Oops. Well, that's not what I meant to do either. Go back down here to revise. And then we'll push that back down. Then we're going to hit the save button. Okay. All right. Revising. The literal meaning of revise is to look again. During revision, your job is to rethink all that you have written to make sure your prose is as clear and effective as possible. It's important that you approach your paper with an open attitude. Always assume that your writing can be improved. Be willing to make changes, even large ones. Sometimes you might even have to throw a chunk of text away and start again. Try to be playful with your text. Test out new things and fiddle around with what you've already written. The worst attitude for revising is to feel too attached to the way you said something the first time. For most writers, the first draft is rarely, if ever, perfect. It won't hurt to change your words. View the revision process as a game or a puzzle, an opportunity to get something just right. And if you don't like the changes, no harm done. You can always put things back the way they were. Good writing requires revision, so don't look at revision as an indicator that you didn't write the paper well the first time. It's normal, even expected, for your paper to go through several revisions before it is complete. The best way I can tell you how to do this is save your draft, okay, your first draft, and then do a revisions and do a save as and save it as revisions, okay? And then that way, whatever revisions you make, you haven't ruined that first draft and you always have it to go back and look at, okay? So just make 2 documents out of it. All right, so revision is removing words, phrases, sentences, or even entire paragraphs. Adding words, phrases, sentences, or paragraphs. Moving words, phrases, sentences, and paragraphs around. Reworking sections and subsections. Giving time and attention to the changes needed. A lot of people don't want to do that. But if you want a good paper, that's what it takes. Revision is not simply running spell check and grammar check. It is not quickly proofreading. And it is not having a friend just glance over the paper. Okay? The first step in revising is to disown your draft. This may seem like a strange thing to do after all the work you have put into it, but it is necessary. If you let your rough draft cool off for a while, you can read it as if it were written by someone else. Give it a couple of days. Give it a day or 2. Then go back and revise it again. All right. Reading for sense. If you can't follow or don't understand what you have written, no one else will either. Here are some questions you can ask as you read to help identify any trouble spots. Do I understand what I have written? Can I follow the stream of information? How well do my ideas flow? How well have I stated my case? Will someone new to the subject understand what I am trying to convey? Did I just read a rambling series of disjointed facts? All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is development. Ask yourself if each paragraph has enough material to make sense to a first-time reader. Also ask yourself if any points have been raised that need more support or should be discussed more fully. Here are a few things you can try if your paper needs more development. Define any terms your reader might not know. As you review your writing, keep an eye out for any words that the reader might not be familiar with. This is especially important for papers about subjects that tend to use technical language, such as science, or football, or baseball, or music, or anything like that. Add details to any description that seems incomplete. Descriptions make your writing more vivid because they help the reader envision what you're talking about. Try to provide examples and illustrations that appeal to the 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, sound, and taste. All right, accuracy. Make sure your paper doesn't contradict itself. If you come across a contradiction, go back through your notes to resolve it. Sometimes a contradiction can't be corrected because the experts themselves may be in disagreement. If that is the case, it's important to point this out so that it doesn't look like a mistake. Another thing here you want to check for in accuracy is logical fallacies. Make sure you do not have any logical fallacies. Introduction and conclusion. These elements of your paper are important because the introduction lures the reader into the paper and the conclusion leaves the reader with a final impression. As you review these sections carefully, ask yourself the following questions. How does the thesis expressed actually relate to the body of the paper? Does the conclusion relate back to your thesis? Once you have confirmed that the introduction and conclusion stayed on point, it's time to refine those paragraphs so they become more than statements of intent or summation. In other words, you need to breathe some life into them. As an As in television commercials or magazine articles, your goal is to entice your reader by presenting your thesis as an intriguing or appealing form. So you want to watch out. Don't worry about problems with spelling and grammar yet. Revising includes substantial editing of your paper. The polishing stage, proofreading, happens separately in the next step of the writing process. So we're still not there yet. Stop that. All right, reading for organization. Writing is a building process with words, sentences, and paragraphs as building blocks. Your goal is to choose the best words, put them together in clear grammatical sentences, form the sentences into logical, coherent paragraphs, arrange and link the paragraphs in a logical order. Organize paragraphs. Read through your paper and ask yourself if there is a line of reasoning you can follow. Your readers need to understand how your ideas relate to each other. Organize your paper by making sure that each paragraph flows smoothly from one to the next in a logical order. If the reasoning seems fuzzy, go through your paper paragraph by paragraph. The body paragraph should begin with a topic sentence that all the other sentences support. When you stay on point and avoid rambling, your ideas will fall into place. Organize sentences. Use topic sentences or your little mini thesis statement to state your main ideas. All your other sentences should have details that support those ideas. Otherwise, your reader might become confused. Follow these steps to make sure your sentences are well organized. As you revise, circle any sentences that does not relate to the topic sentence. If possible, rephrase those sentences so they fit with the topic sentence. Remove any sentences that you cannot rephrase. All right. Sure where I'm at here. All right, if you stumble as you read, that's probably a sign that a sentence needs to be reworked. Don't make your reader work hard to understand you. All right, reading for style. Look too for opportunities to say things more clearly and precisely than in the first draft. Look for words that may be unnecessary and take them out. Look for sentences that can be rewritten so that their relationship to what has gone before and to what follows will be as clear as possible. There are two common style errors and two basic fixes you should keep in mind as you revise. Combine short, choppy sentences into one compound or complex sentence. As you wrote your first draft, your main concern was getting your ideas on the page. Some of your sentences probably sound awkward. Take this opportunity to smooth them out. Break down long, complicated sentences into two or more sentences for easier understanding. When you're writing about a complicated or interesting idea, it's common to use long sentences. Watch for sentences that stretch across more than 2 lines. You might need to simplify the sentences so your reader doesn't get tangled up, and also to avoid run-on sentences. Okay? So then you have a revision checklist that I've given you right here. All right. Does my writing have a beginning, a middle, and an end? Is there a clear, specific thesis for the paper? Is the paper organized around the thesis? Does each paragraph have a topic sentence? Is the order of sentences in each paragraph planned or random? Do the sentences in the paragraph support the topic sentence? Do the paragraphs have a logical relationship with one another, or are they isolated blocks of information? Is the development of the ideas adequate? Is my stance on the subject apparent to the reader? Is the wording clear and exact? Is the introduction strong? Does the draft conclude or just trail off? Have I included enough facts, examples, and illustrations? Is my method of development clear and easy to follow? Will my audience be unclear or confused about any of the ideas in my paper? All right. So, here's something that will really help you. Reading your draft aloud. If you have time, set aside your first draft for a day or two after you write it. A short break will help you approach your writing with fresh eyes. When you return to your draft, try to imagine the paper is someone else's work so you can be more critical. When you return to your paper, read it aloud. Hearing your words will help you catch mistakes and trouble spots, any sections that are unclear or confusing. If you can, read your paper to a friendly listener. Usually it's best to read the draft once straight through. When you finish, let your listener silently read the paper a second time. After that second reading, ask him or her to point out the strong and weak points in your writing. Usually your ear can catch a lot of mistakes that maybe you don't catch with your eyes, because you knew what you meant by what you wrote, correct? So sometimes your eyes won't catch it, but your ear will. All right, proofreading. You've gone over your rough draft, filling it in here and thinning it out there. You're satisfied you have included all the information you need to provide. You're also confident that everything in your paper is necessary, understandable, and in its proper place. Now you're ready to proofread. Proofreading is the final step. It's the time to check your writing for simple errors. In theory, proofreading should be an easy, straightforward process. Often, though, it can be difficult to spot errors because you've already spent so much time with the paper. You might have to make an extra effort to slow yourself down, reading your paper through, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, from beginning to end. Look, I'm going to tell you the best way I know of to proofread. Start at the bottom of your paper and read it backwards. Takes things out of context and you're actually looking at it sentence by sentence. Makes it much easier to catch those errors. So this is your proofreading checklist. Spelling, fact-checking, grammar, formatting, capitalization, and punctuation. All right, spelling. Running the spell checker on your computer will not guarantee that your paper will be free of spelling errors. The computer only recognizes misspelled words. It cannot, however, decide if you have used an incorrect word. For instance, spell checker can't distinguish between homophones like your, Y-O-U-R, and you-are, with an apostrophe, your. Please don't be using those anyway. You're not supposed to use contractions in your paper. This is academic writing, no contractions. Check a dictionary for any words that you're not sure about. Verify proper nouns like names and places, especially the capitalization part. If you have a question about that or spelling out numbers, use the yellow sections in the back of your textbook. There's places back there that will tell you about whether that capitalization or those numbers should be done. Fact checking. If you include such items as birth and death dates or publication dates, make sure they are correct. It takes only a few minutes to make sure those details are accurate. All right, grammar. Mistakes in grammar can confuse the reader and even change the meaning of what you write. Here are some of the most common grammatical errors you should watch for as you proofread your work. Run-on sentences, sentence fragments, subject-verb agreement, pronoun agreement, unclear pronoun references, dangling modifiers, misplaced modifiers, shifts in verb tenses, comma splices, misplaced apostrophes. All of those things you need to be watching out for. All right? Formatting. Make sure you use the appropriate format. All right, I have put in exactly what format you're supposed to use in your Essay 1 assignment. Look at it. Your goal is to make a good impression. Your paper should be easy to read so the reader can focus on what you're saying. The format should support and not distract from your ideas. Don't make the reader strain to see what you're saying. You should not be writing this by hand. This should be a Word document. If it is not a Word document, I will not grade it. It must go through Turnitin.com. If it cannot be processed through Turnitin.com, you will receive a 0 for this paper. No exceptions. None. Nada. Zipola. Okay? Am I making that clear? I hope so. Don't forget a title for your work. And it better not say Essay 1. And it better not say your topic either. Make a title. It only takes a few minutes to consider an appropriate title for your paper. All right, strategic proofreading. Target your personal problem areas to get more out of your proofreading time. Be aware. Here it is. Be aware of your writing weaknesses. Everyone has a different problem area. Think about the types of errors you make most often. Are you a bad speller? Do you frequently create comma splices? Do you write run-on sentences? If you're not sure, take a look at feedback you've received from teachers in the past. Word prompts, that's all I'm going to say. When you proofread your writing, do a separate read-through where you focus on your personal problem areas. If you have an issue with sentence fragments, check every sentence to make sure it has a subject and a verb. If you have trouble with pronouns, focus on those. Address the source of your mistakes by spending extra time learning how to fix your problem areas. While it may take some effort, it will save you time in the long run. All right, tricks of the trade. Here are some ideas you can use to boost your proofreading power. Start at the end of your paper and read backwards and check for errors. I already told you that. If you're using a computer, change the way the document looks by altering the layout or the formatting. Giving your paper a makeover might trick your brain into thinking you're looking for something new. Just remember to turn it back before you try to turn it in. Stop yourself from skipping ahead by covering the page with a sheet of paper. Uncover each line of text one at a time to help you focus on what you're reading. Try working from a printed copy of your paper instead of making corrections on the screen. Use a colored pen to mark your changes so you can see them better. Avoid distractions like music or television. Focus all your attention on your proofreading. Take a break if you find your attention wandering. All right, now we're going to go to cutting the fat. All right, I give you here a list of wordy and lean. And again, I'm not going to read all that to you. You can pretty much do that on your own, okay? So if you have a problem with being wordy, you've maybe had a teacher put that on your paper before. I have on mine. If it makes you feel any better, you can kind of look at this and maybe use this to replace some of that, okay? Always assume that you can make your writing tighter and leaner. If you look close enough, you'll almost always find sentences, phrases, and words that you really don't need. Make sure that every word works hard. If a simpler word or phrase will do the same job, use that instead. Your goal is to be as succinct as possible without sacrificing clarity. One good way to cut the fat is to avoid redundancy. Writing becomes redundant or repetitive when you use more than one word that means the same thing. You will see me write this on your papers. Consider how the following phrases each use two words that mean the same thing. Free gifts. Gifts are always free. Advance forward. Advance and forward are synonyms. Circle around. Circle and around are synonyms. Current trend. Trends are always current, so you don't need to say things like that. Another way to tighten your prose is to cut extra prepositional phrases. Whenever you have a string of prepositional phrases, check if any of them can be collapsed or eliminated, such as the imbalance of chemicals in the liver of the patient caused problems for the intern on the evening watch. Removing some of the prepositional phrases takes the sentence from 19 words to 14. The chemical imbalance in the patient's liver caused problems for the evening watch intern. Much simpler. All right. Speak plainly. Don't try to dress up your writing to be something that it's not. Instead of making a special effort to use big words, try to explain things as simply as possible. I call this, do not try to be more photosynthesis. Lots of times people will use big words and they don't completely understand the connotations behind the word. And so they use the word actually improperly. If you do not know the complete meaning of a word, including the connotations behind that word, don't use it. There's no reason to use a big word if a small word will do. Okay? I'm not saying that you shouldn't use words that make your vocabulary sound well educated. But there's a difference in sounding well educated and sounding like a pompous, behind. Okay? So here's some things you want to avoid. Foreign language expressions. Don't use non-English expressions unless a word or a phrase is common enough in English to be found in a dictionary. You sound like you're putting on airs. Foreign language expressions are hard to understand, pretentious, and almost always unnecessary. If you must use a foreign word or phrase because it doesn't translate into English, write the foreign word in italics followed by its rough English equivalent in parentheses. Avoid jargon, slang, and euphemism. Jargon and slang may not be understood by your reader. Even if it is understood, that kind of language will make the tone of your paper too informal. Euphemism, the substitution of a polite roundabout way of referring to something disturbing or unpleasant, can make your paper sound prissy. So try to avoid those, and I've given you a chart explaining what it is, an example of it, and a better choice. Okay? Avoid informal language. Informal language that might be okay in conversation is often unacceptable in writing. Make sure you use a word correctly when you write it. Do not, for the love of Frank, use things like text language. Don't use y'all. Don't use like dude. I say dude a lot. I was raised in the 80s. We dude it a lot. Everything is dude to me. My pen is a dude. My brother-in-law is a dude. My sister-in-law is a dude. Yeah, I say dude, but I don't write dude. Okay? I'm not here as your speech teacher. If you need one of those, you need to go see Professor Scott. He is our speech teacher, and he is absolutely wonderful. But I teach you to write. And you don't write like that, okay? So let's not do that. I don't know why that would be. Oh, no. Ignore. And ignore. I wrote that on purpose. Okay. From the north, they tend to say use guys. I've heard that. My relatives in Wisconsin, use guys. You don't want to say pop for Coca-Cola. If you're talking about the brand Coca-Cola, then say Coca-Cola. Don't say Coke when you just mean general sodas. Say sodas. Okay? You want to be very careful in your wording. Okay? No informal language. You want to avoid cliches. You will see me write this on your paper. Cliches are worn-out words and phrases that have been used so often that they've lost their meaning. Writing with cliches is lazy and careless. It suggests that you haven't thought out exactly what you want to say, and so you're just throwing a cliche in there, because I'm too lazy to think of something better and to describe exactly what I mean. So do not use cliches in your writing, and I have gotten whole papers filled with these things. And I can tell you now, you will not make an A, B, or maybe even a C paper if you give me a whole paper full of them. You will not make a good paper if it's full of cliches, okay? Or jargon, or slang, or euphemism. It's just not going to happen. So don't use these things. All right. So I'm going to read you a quote from The Elements of Style by William Strunk Jr. and E.B. White. And you don't know them, but let me just say they're extremely good writers on writing. Young writers often suppose that style is a garnish for the meat of the prose, a sauce by which a dull dish is made palatable. Style has no such separate entity. It is not undetectable, unfilterable. The beginner should approach style warily, realizing that it is an expression of self, and should turn resolutely away from all devices that are popularly believed to indicate style, all mannerisms, tricks, adornments. The approach of style is by way of plainness, simplicity, orderliness, sincerity. Right? And that is the end of your lecture on, oh boy, what all did we cover? I just went blank. Sorry, getting old. You know how that goes? No, you don't know how that goes. Y'all are a bunch of spring chickens. On drafting, revising, proofreading, and cutting the fat. Y'all have a good day. Bye.